fantastic market because of the strength of the population.
You have to Vietnamize your content here.
I would tell them to come on board, tell them what they like, or give them what they like.
Viet Nam is a very, very dynamic and exciting market.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the show. My name is Phi Nguyen and I'm your host on Inside Vietnam. In the last two episodes, we have discussed Vietnam's market overview, regional segmentation, and insights into young consumerism in Vietnam. On today's show, I'm going to take you on a journey into the advertising and media landscape of Vietnam and discuss the industry structure, what works and what does not work in Vietnam, as well as challenges that you may face as an advertiser in this market. We've got a veteran in advertising industry here today as our guest speaker. I'd like to welcome David Lester, Managing Director of Leo Burnett Vietnam. David has spent 34 years of his life with Leo Burnett, of which 19 years as a Burnett Managing Director and 10 years in Asia. David's focus is very much on understanding issues. This is David's comment that I quite like. Too many people are talking solutions before any of the problem has been clearly identified. As for Leo Burnett, the company has been in Vietnam for 12 years, and Burnett was Vietnam's first legally recognized multinational agency through a BCC agreement. Let's meet David on the show. Good day to you, David, and thank you very much for joining us on Inside Vietnam. Let me start by asking you a very personal question.
Please do.
How long have you been here in Vietnam,
I have been in Vietnam for 8 years.
For 8 years?
Yeah, I've been in Asia for 10 years.
Now, there is a myth that local agencies and local people sort of understand the local consumers better. What is your point of view on that as a foreigner working here in Vietnam?
Yeah. In my case, having been here for 8 years, having been to 200 weddings, having been through about 24, 30 wet markets, stood in queues for supermarkets and been to lots of home visits, I think that I've got a very strong understanding of the dynamic and how people feel.
So 5-6 years ago, I understand that the international agencies or the joint venture agencies are prominent in Vietnam, and local agencies are sort of subcontractors and doing a lot of below-the-line activities to service the international agencies. Is that still the case here in Vietnam?
There are something like 43 advertising agencies in Vietnam. Now, of the 43, about 7 or 8 of them are multinational agencies. And the bulk of the business would be with the multinational agencies, mainly because the bulk of the clients are multinational clients.
With digital media becoming a lot more prominent globally, and I would think that that's the same happening in Vietnam. Have you seen any shift in the industry in terms of structure?
We have seen some sort of smaller specialist operations still start up, but in truth, the major agencies, they see that is a major new channel of communication, and so certainly major agencies like Leo Burnett, major agencies like O&M or JWT or whomever, these guys would be putting in place digital departments within their agencies.
Is that happening already at the international agency level?
Well, with the principal agencies, it is. I think with the principal agencies, a lot of the back-end work may well in fact go out, be subcontracted out, but certainly the planning and the development of the digital campaign and the design and the look of the site, right, that would be, strategy would be with the agencies. The agencies would then oversee its implementation, but execution is something that they would then hand out to third party.
Have you ever actually advised a client to use digital marketing as a key channel?
At the moment, yeah. At the moment we've got, for one of our major clients, it is completely digital. In truth, it's probably 90% digital, but the whole thing it's a digital idea. For
digital marketing to work in Vietnam, what sort of platforms are we using here in Vietnam at the moment? The platforms is in Facebook or Twitter? We
are using all of them. We are going to use digital communication. Now the issue is, how do we use it? How do we develop our program so that it then does link through to Facebook, it then does link through to Twitter, it links through to all the, it enables us to use the digital platform very, very effectively.
Okay, let's move on and talk about marketing evolution. Sounds very professional.
It does indeed, actually.
I've looked at the marketing evolution scale and from straight sale to advertising itself, the constructed advertising, and I think Vietnam is sitting around level 3 to about level 5. What's your point of view on that?
Well, I'd agree with that. You know, most of them are still give me functional stories.
And then there's metaphor and there's lifestyle experiences in the equation as well. How do you put them all together?
Well, in truth, I suppose when it comes to lifestyle, when it comes to metaphor, you know, they are in truth used in markets which are probably more ad savvy. You know, certainly with younger people, you can use that style of advertising because they get it pretty quickly. But, you know, older people, you know, they don't understand. They don't understand.
Is Vietnam an ad-savvy market, do you think?
Well, certainly with young people, absolutely. Absolutely, they get it very, very quickly. But again, if you look at you look at the total market, you look at the nature of products, you look at who buys what, in truth, it's mainly with the housewife. And so therefore, you know, she's really into the fundamental benefits. That's what I want to know and understand.
And a bit of entertainment value.
And a bit of entertainment value, absolutely. Absolutely, yes.
David, can you give me an example of how you put these together in a story or in a commercial?
I suppose when we talk about functional benefits and we talk about lifestyle, an interesting example would be some work that we've done for Yomost. Yomost is drinking yogurt. We recently launched Yomost with power fruits. And so power fruits are very, very beneficial to the skin. And so therefore it gives the skin a real glow. And, you know, recently we developed, you know, what was a really interesting, entertaining piece of communication, which was all about, you know, 3 girls who obviously had been drinking it, and, you know, they had this power to really be able to blow away and to excite males who noticed their beauty. And, you know, so this has been a campaign which has been very, very successful.
You know, the research agencies always talk about aspirations as a key attribute in communication in Vietnam, especially to the young consumers. What is your point of view on that?
Well, you know, when we talk about aspiration, you know, we talk about what is it that they're actually buying into. You know, so, you know, these guys are ultimately, they're buying into a lifestyle of some description, aren't they? And so therefore, you know, certainly I think aspirational advertising does work, but it's the level at which you would choose to pitch the story. You know, there are some brands where aspiration is very, very important. You know, certainly aspiration is very important for fashion, for soft drinks. You know, in some cases it might be important for a product like Yomost. So, but you've got to understand how to use it. You know, certainly you've got to use it as at a level so that people believe the offer that you're making. Can I actually achieve that? Right? You know, by using A, B or C.
So it has to be achievable.
Exactly right. Am I going to be turned into Superman? No one actually believes that. No one actually believes that. But am I going to feel good? Am I going to feel enhanced as a result of using A or B? Well, yes, I am.
So having said that, qualitative research is very important for you to dig down an insight into the consumer target.
Yeah, correct.
What if your client do not have the budget to do research in Vietnam?
Well, I suppose it comes down to the size of the project. I mean, if it were a major investment, well then, you know, I would have some concern. But if we're talking about, you know, a major strategic change, well then I would be saying this has got to be looked at.
You know, the Nielsen company actually tracks what they call Gen V, Generation Vietnam, from 13 to 24 years old as a hardcore youth. What they're talking about is that for this particular young group, there are subgroups in terms of psychographic areas. And they recommend that their clients would go, in terms of creative material, go towards the uber modern, the sort of extrovert people to create material, but at the same time not alienating the regulars. What is your point of view on that?
These guys are probably opinion leaders in the early adopters. And we all know that the early adopters, as defined, they pick it up and then everyone else follows. So on that basis, I would probably agree with what they're saying.
But what do you think from an ad agency point of view, how can you create a material that's very aspirational but not too edgy so that you won't alienate the regulars?
You can't do that.
You can't do that.
I don't believe you can do that. And this is a major mistake that many people make, right, is that we're trying to talk to three different groups through one communication. It does not work.
It does not work.
Absolutely no. What we've got to do, we've got to be single-minded in who is the target, clearly identify who they are, and then have a very clear message aimed directly at those people. We do that, we are going to be successful. The story is very clear. If we're saying, well, we want A and we want a little bit of B and can you watch for C, you're going to come up with wallpaper, right? And you're going to waste your money. And so therefore, my point of view would be we have to be absolutely focused in terms of who we're going to reach, who we should reach, and what is the story we want to tell them.
So if a client is targeting Gen V, they should be very clear on which subgroup they're talking to and would like to target.
Absolutely.
They should not go across the board and try to appeal to everyone. Is that what
Because
you're
it's
saying?
not going to work.
Because there are different groups or different subgroups in the youth sector in Vietnam, and I believe that they would be at various levels of ad savviness. How do you as an ad agency going to appeal to each group? Where are they on the scale? Do you think?
Truly, they're nearly at a deconstructed level, the kids are. The kids are. Because you've got to think, who are we talking about? Who are we talking about? We're talking about the MTV generation. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about the guys. They see it all. They know. They know. They get it very, very quickly. And we don't have to be as detailed in terms of our explanation. They're a visual generation. And, you know, they are used to every sort of visual technique,
Just
trick
flash
you
a
can do.
visual at them,
Exactly right. They get it. They get it.
What about other groups in Vietnam, the mothers, the
as I
older
said,
generation?
well, they don't get it all.
No.
But this comes down to who are we targeting. The mothers, they are still at a functional level. The kids are way ahead of their parents. And in truth, the parents no longer understand the kids. And this is a major problem because today, in truth, the kids don't have the role models any longer. And this is because the parent, in a lot of cases, parents just don't understand the world in which the kids are living.
It's a whole lot generation altogether.
And this is part of what happens in a dynamic, exciting economy like Vietnam, which is progressing very, very, very quickly. And the kids pick it up quickly.
What about the older males in Vietnam? What level are they at? Are they functional as well?
Exactly.
An executive of a big agency here once told me that creativity does not belong to the creative director, nor the agency, nor the client. It belongs to the audience. What do you think about that?
Brands belong to people, well then I would accept that. Okay? So therefore, if brands belong to people, well then maybe as a result, the advertising for that brand belongs to the people also.
Brands belong to the people.
Brands belong to people. And today people have great influence on brands. And you know, if all of a sudden you make a change, you do get the comments, you know, this is my brand, what have you done to my brand? You can't do that.
What about Vietnamese consumers? Do they take ownership of the brands?
Probably not at the level that we've seen in the West.
In terms of communication, is Vietnamese as a language very, very important to be used, or do you think English can be used?
Absolutely Vietnamese. Absolutely Vietnamese. No. English is a waste of time. In truth, you know, okay, we are lucky in Vietnam that we have a very high proportion of people who speak English, which is fantastic. But, you know, in truth, in communicating to the Vietnamese, you've really got to talk to them in Vietnamese.
Even the young consumers of Vietnam?
Exactly right. That's the mother tongue. That's the language with which they're comfortable. And if you want to personalise a brand, if you want to say this is my brand, well, the way to personalise the brand is to present the brand in Vietnamese, not in English.
2 years ago, David, I wrote a book in Vietnamese, though not in English, called Advertising in Vietnam, an Insider's Point of View. And I did mention that a lot of the advertisers at that particular time used foreign institutions or some foreign talent to endorse the brands. And that sort of create a lot of trust within the local consumers. What is your point of view on that?
I think probably a couple of years ago, it may have been necessary to do that. I don't think that is the case now because I think the Vietnamese consumer is more savvy, right? Because I think what's happened now is that there's more choice, and you know, I think that Vietnamese people are, as I said, they're more aware and they're more confident in the decisions that they're going to make. And I think the other issue is that they've now been exposed to more. And so they're now in a much better position to be able to make decisions about what they believe is right for them and right for their family.
What you're saying is that their knowledge and understanding of product attributes have actually raised.
Correct. You know, I spend a lot of time in supermarkets and I watch them, they read packs. They read packs.
Let's talk about what works and what doesn't work in Vietnam in terms of creativity. Without touching base on the consumer target, what are the general guidelines, do you think, for what works and what doesn't work in terms of creativity here?
First of all, you've got to have a creative hook. And, you know, certainly it's more effective if in fact, your brand can be integrated as part of that idea. People need to be involved in the story. I think that people need to feel that the story you're telling is a credible story. Right? And obviously people, they like to be entertained. And again, it has to be very simple and it's got to be very, very clear and it's got to be very single-minded in terms of what it is that you're saying.
It's only one thing.
That's what it's all about. And you look at the ads, there's too much in there. The most effective ads are the ads that have got one story, that have got a creative hook, and they tell it in an interesting, entertaining manner. And that's the stuff that works really well. And so long as the product is integrated into the story and you don't have the product which is a bolt-on at the end, and so it could be an ad for anybody, and over a period of time what you've got to do is you've got to build up brand cues within the story so that you are referring back to the brand all the time, and so that the people understand during the story who the story is coming from.
And always flash back to the brand.
There is some tonality about the brand, there is some character about the brand, right? And you've got to make sure that whatever it is that you do reflects the character and helps to tell the story in an effective way.
And that works for all target consumers.
Absolutely.
Doesn't matter your own or young.
Doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't matter what it is. Absolutely.
You know, when I talked to the Nielsen company on the last show, I actually talked about the young generation of Vietnam as in the 18 to 22 or 23 to 30 as very much a trapped generation because they are trapped in between the past and the present, the traditional values and their expression of freedom and individuality. Do you think that's the case?
I would say that the 20 to 25s are probably trapped in the tradition. I think they're probably going to be the last generation who are trapped there, because when you see the generation that's coming through, these are people who want more freedom and who are demanding more freedom. They came through, you know, the changed Vietnam, live in a world where all of their values are changing so rapidly they're not sure where they are, and so the world is spinning around these guys, and you know the most confused people are the males. They just don't know, the older males don't know where they are because all of the sort of the traditional values that they came up to expect have gone.
Let's talk about the media landscape of Vietnam. I understand that Vietnam has a very fragmented media landscape, and TV is king with about 100% penetration.
Correct.
And then you've got print followed that.
Yeah,
what are the other channels, media channels, do you think that can be used in Vietnam?
Well, you know, certainly you've got the traditional ones. So you have television, you've got print. We've seen a diversification of print in magazines. You know, so when I came here 10 years ago, there were a limited number of magazines. Today we've got a zillion lifestyle magazines. We see radio trying to resurrect itself. We see outdoor. But the other thing we're seeing is, obviously we're seeing a lot of event activity and a lot of activation. So we're seeing a lot of client companies taking to the streets and building a one-on-one relationship with their customers. And you know, if in fact you look at globally what's happened, there has been a shift of dollars to what we call BTL, below the line, trying to have a one-on-one personal relationship with the consumer.
Now I understand that TV is king in Vietnam, and every big advertisers would want to be on TV. That creates a lot of clutters for TV. So how would you advise your client in terms of cutting through to the clutters?
Well, it comes to be brave, first of all, to be brave, because as I said to you, if you look at a lot of advertising in Vietnam, there is a lot of sameness. There are lots of smiling families, and there are lots of sort of slurping of noodles and a lot of cuddling of children. I think there's a figure of something like 65-70% of ads, the money's being wasted. The money's being wasted.
Makes absolutely no effect.
Exactly right, because the stories are not being told as focused as they can. Breaking through the clutter is still all to do with the idea.
But the idea is very
It's
important.
all about the idea. It's all about the idea. You cut through with the quality of the idea. You surprise people. You involve people. You amaze people. You stop them. That's what it's all about. Unless advertising stops you, well, then the money's been wasted.
Have you ever presented a brave idea that's rejected by a client?
Of course. Advertising agencies have drawers full of brave ideas that have been...
What do you do then?
What do you do? Well, you get disappointed, and then you go back and you pause, you have a good night's sleep, and then you come home and you start again. You go, okay, let's look at it again. But no agency will give up on the idea of, give up on trying to have an idea.
Let's talk a little bit about the cost issue, and can you just give us a perspective on how much it costs for a TV commercial, 30 seconds on a prime time in Vietnam?
Well, that's $2,000 US.
$2,000 US for a spot. And what about a full-page, full-color brand
Well, that's
magazine?
between, depending where you put it, that's between $1,500 and $2,000.
Let's touch base on advertising policies in Vietnam, and I think a lot of people are very interested in this area. I was told that the policy is quite tight, so no cigarettes, no liquor, no sex, no violence, no national images and things like that. Do you think that create a lot of limitation for you in terms of creativity?
In truth, no.
Not at all?
No, in truth, no. No.
What about censorship?
Well, censorship is an issue. Okay, everything is, and I think that's good for the Vietnamese people. Every communication is censored. Okay, so therefore, commercials are self-censored by television stations, and when you deal with this television station, you get one point of view from A, and you can get a different point of view from B. So that can be a bit of a problem. So somehow you've got to manage that. Certainly with all print advertising, the publishers, they will have final say as to whether they believe that it's right, wrong, suitable for their publication, suitable within the guidelines they manage on behalf of the authorities. The one that the toughest, of course, is MOH, with the Ministry of Health.
Yes.
And in truth, I think that's fair. And, that is all to do with, looking after the health of Vietnamese people.
So how long does it take for an ad to be cleared through censorship?
Normally you've got to allow a couple of weeks, right? Normally you've got to allow for the television and the print guys. Normally if you get an appointment, you can go down and see them, and normally if it's television production, we will see them on a couple of occasions. When we get an idea, they might give you some guidance on it, but they're not approving anything, and they're not approving anything else they see a complete commercial. The Ministry of Health is completely different. That takes the time it takes.
Last question, David. If there is one message that you would like to send to a new advertiser coming to Vietnam, what would that be?
Vietnam is a very, very dynamic and exciting market, I would say that. You really need to look through the excitement, or behind the excitement, of Ho Chi Minh and Hanoi. Because Vietnam is in fact the 70% of people who don't live in Ho Chi Minh and Hanoi, and who live in the provinces. And in truth, the long-term opportunity lies with these people. So therefore, I would say to anyone who's thinking about coming here, you've really got to understand what's happening within the rural area, right? You've got to understand, what it is that I've got. Do I really believe that for the bulk of the people, and that's where they are, this is right? And then how do I get to them? So that would be my comment.
That's a very interesting message, and I think people will appreciate it. Well, thank you very much, David, for being on the show with us today.
Thank you. I certainly hope that I have found it interesting, and I certainly hope that those who watch this program in some way benefit from the discussion we've had. So thank you for including me. Thanks a lot. Good on you.
Vietnam can be a very tricky market in terms of advertising and media. If not enough attention is paid on harnessing consumer insights as a foundation for creativity and choice of communication channels, it is also a market where sensitivity is high and censorship plays a major role in whether your investment in creativity and production pays off. Come with an open mind and work with a set of boundaries with the help of a consultancy company for an ad agency. Let us thank David for providing us such insights into the advertising and media landscape of Vietnam. If you have questions for this topic, please feel free to send them to phi@insightvietnam.com.vn. For past episodes and show updates, please visit Insight Vietnam on WordPress, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. My name is Phi Nguyen, and I'm your host on Insight Vietnam. Until next time, keep Vietnam close to your heart.